Another episode of Bible Questions, where we look at questions from the Bible, questions that people ask God and questions that God asks people. All right? When people ask God a question, it's stuff that they want to know, things that are on their heart, things they're curious about, all kind of different reasons. When God asks people questions, it's because he's trying to get our thinking lined up with his thinking. All right? Tonight, we'll be looking at a question that the Lord asked religious leaders in Jerusalem. While we're at it, we'd love to have you come and worship with us. Freedom Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church is located at 401 West Sullivan Street in Kingsport, Tennessee. And we have our services on Sunday at the regular times, pretty much everybody else does. Sunday school at 10, worship service at 11 o'clock, Sunday night service at 6. On Wednesday nights, we have a service at 7, and we have prayer meeting where our people take prayer requests and volunteer to make those their prayer assignments during the week. And they volunteer to, they commit to praying for each of those requests every day this week. On Saturdays, we feed people who need to be fed. If you're hungry or know somebody's hungry, you show up at our church Saturday morning, 9:30 to 10:30, 11, however long it takes to serve everybody. We'll give you a hot meal. No questions asked. You want one? Here you go. We serve well over 100 hot meals every Saturday. And then if you need food to take home, you have a family or somebody else at home and you have a way to cook, we will give you a cardboard box full of food to take home. We give out 30, 40, sometimes 70 or more boxes of food. Just by the grace of God, who touches people's hearts to donate, organizations donate, people from our church volunteer to serve, other churches volunteer to serve. We're just a distribution point. We're happy to feed people in the name of the Lord, take care of their physical need so that they will believe us when we talk about their spiritual needs and how Jesus Christ wants to save their soul. All right? So that's our church. That's what we do. All of our services are online on Facebook and on our website, freedomfellowshipmbc.com for Missionary Baptist Church, MBC. And you'll find us on Facebook, of course, YouTube, and other platforms that our app reaches. Tonight, the question is a question that the Lord asked the religious leaders in Jerusalem. And he asked it, the question comes from Matthew 21, verse 25. The question is, the baptism of John, meaning John the Baptist, the baptism of John, whence was it from? Was it from heaven or of men? Meaning the ministry and authority of John the Baptist, the way he preached and ministered and baptized, and his ministry, was it powered by God or was it just powered by men? Jesus asked this question in Matthew 21, 25. So this is a question from the Lord to the chief priests and elders. Matthew 21, 25. Matthew 21, 25. The baptism of John, whence was it? From heaven or of men? That's the first part of the verse. Now, how do we get here? We always want to get the context. Never want to look at a verse in isolation. Want to know what came before it, want to know what came after it, so you get the whole picture. The context in Matthew 21, from verses 1 to 11, Matthew 21, verses 1 to 11, Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, the big parade that brought him into Jerusalem on what we call Palm Sunday. All right? He did that, and people are praising his name, saying, Hosanna to the Son of David. And then in Matthew 21, verses 12 to 13, he goes to the temple that day. Matthew 21, verses 12 to 13, and Jesus, when he entered into the temple of God, and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. And when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying in the temple and saying, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were sore displeased. And said unto him, Hearest thou what these say? And Jesus saith to them, Yea, have ye never read, out of the mouth of babes and sucklings thou hast perfected praise. And so Jesus quotes from Psalm chapter 8, verse 2 and verse 16. The chief priests and elders are mad. Jesus comes in there to the temple, clears the temple out, throws out the money changers, throws out the people selling animals, saying, You've turned my Father's house into a house of a den of thieves. It's supposed to be a house of prayer. And then he's healing people, and people are praising him in the name of the Lord. And Chief priests and the scribes are mad about this. They're mad that he's cleared out the temple. They're mad that he's healing people. They're mad that he's getting praise. They're mad, number one, because it cuts into their authority. And number two, it cuts into their money. They're getting a cut out of everybody there that's selling stuff in the temple. All right? And then from Matthew 21, verse 17 to 22, Jesus leaves Jerusalem that night, spends the night outside of the city, and then comes back to the temple the next day. When he comes back to the temple the next day, Matthew 21, 23, the chief priests and scribes see him coming. Oh, here he comes again. And they try to challenge his authority. Matthew 21, verse 23. And when he was come into the temple, the chief priest and the elders of the people came unto him as he was teaching, and said, By what authority doest thou these things? And who gave thee this authority? Jesus, who do you think you are? Under what authority do you come and you just take over the temple and teach whatever you want to teach and do all these things? Because he's challenging their authority. The chief priests and the elders, the religious leaders in Jerusalem, they're supposed to be running the temple. And of course, he shut down the business of buying and selling in the temple. That's cutting into it because they get a fee, a cut for letting people do that. And they're, what authority do you think you have? Who do you think you are? And so that leads them asking this question, because here he comes again, day two, he's doing the same thing, like we're nobodies and he's in charge of God's house. Who does he think he is? Well, maybe Jesus believes he's God. Maybe he believes he's the Son of God. He's taking care of the Father's house. But Jesus answers them in Matthew 21, 24, and 25. Matthew 21, 24, and 25. When they ask him, what authority do you have? He answers, Matthew 21, 24, and 25. And Jesus answered and said unto them, I will also ask you one thing, which if you tell me, I likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, whence was it? From heaven or of men? He says, okay, you ask me a question, I'll ask you a question. If you answer mine, I'll answer yours. All right. The baptism of John, meaning John the Baptist, his ministry, his baptism, his preaching, was it empowered by God? Was his work commissioned from heaven? Was he sent by God? Or was he just another ministry of men? Now they go on. See, Jesus is superseding their authority and he's challenging their authority. What about John the Baptist? Did you recognize his authority? All right? And so in verse 25, and they reasoned with themselves, saying, if we shall say from heaven, he'll say unto us, why did you not then believe him? But if we shall say of men, we fear the people, for all hold John as a prophet. See, Jesus is asking this question in the temple. While he was teaching, they interrupted him, asking him, well, who do you think you are? What authority do you have? And he turned around, okay, you answer me. When John came and ministering and preaching and baptizing, what was his authority? Was it of God or men? He's asking a biblical question. He's asking a godly question. He's asking a spiritual question. They, as the chief priests and elders, they should know the answer to that. But they stop and think, they're worried about the political aspects. Jesus has put them on the spot in front of the public, in front of a crowd of people that he's been teaching. He's turned it around and put them on the spot. And they just flat out say here that, okay, if we say, obviously John, his power was from God, Jesus is going to say, well, why didn't you believe him? Why didn't you follow him? Why didn't you agree with him? Why didn't you support him? But if we say his power was just of men, not of God, well, all these people around here are going to get mad at us because they all believe John was a prophet from God. And so instead of giving Jesus an answer, a biblical answer, a spiritual answer, they give him a political answer. They punt. They kick the ball back. Verse 27, and they answered Jesus and said, we cannot tell. We don't know. We don't know whether John was from God or just of men. We don't know. And then Jesus does the same thing to them. Verse 27, part B of the verse. And he said unto them, neither tell I you by what authority I do these things. If you're not going to answer my question, you can't tell whether John was from God or not, I'm not going to tell you where my authority is. I don't need to pay attention to you. I don't need to regard you whatsoever. because they gave him a political answer, not a biblical answer. They weren't interested in truth. They were interested in status. They weren't interested in truth and being right with God. They were interested in politics and power and authority and money. None of which Jesus was concerned about. Jesus was concerned about giving people a biblical truth, the spiritual truth, the truth of God, and the truth of God's Word. That's what he was doing. So he exposed them as politicians and power-hungry people, and he refused to answer them. Now, if you like doing studies like this, where we study things in context, verses before, the verses after, what's going on here, the question, why did Jesus ask this question? All right, then hit like, hit share, tell other people, and we'll see more of this. All right. Next week, the question is a question to the Lord. Nathanael, one of his disciples, Nathanael saith unto him, Whence knowest thou me? How do you know me, Jesus? And we find that question in John 1, verse 48. John 1, verse 48. You want to know how that works out and what that question came from and how Jesus answers that?